The Upper West region of Ghana is struggling to feed itself. Rising temperatures and increasingly unpredictable rains are compounding the long-running problems of an increasing population and declining soil fertility. In the area around Jirapa and Laura, maize and cowpea yields have slumped.
We are seeing maize still standing unharvested. It has failed. If you are to remove the caps, you see that I will have to dispose of all this maize.
Groundnut, one of the most economically important crops in the area, has seen very poor harvest. Now, even drought-tolerant crops like millet and sorghum are failing.
We used to get huge harvests of maize, millet, and groundnut, but now we don't get anything. Our soil is poor and the rains are also low. The temperature is never coming down. As a matter of fact, it's been going up. That's why our crops don't do well anymore.
As staple crops fail, more and more farmers are turning to livestock production. But while sheep and goats are able to feed on the low-quality grasslands, farmers still need to produce crops to feed themselves and their families, as well as to maintain their traditional diets and identities. The situation has triggered a rush to the banks of local rivers in search of land to grow vegetables. The Black Volta River, which marks the boundary between northwest Ghana and Burkina Faso, is one area facing increasing pressure. For those farmers fortunate to have land near the rivers, yields are good. But the situation is causing increasing tensions, resulting in competing claims for the land. Increasingly common is the migration of farmers from their homelands in the Upper West region to Ghana's cooler, wetter northern region, about 120 kilometers south.
My husband left 3 months ago. Initially, I was very sad, but there was so much hardship here. We needed money to buy food and to send our children to school.
Near the town of Kekiasi, average temperatures are 2 degrees cooler and the land is much more fertile. A whole community of migrants has sprung up.
I am a settler here. All the people gathered here are settlers. I moved from the Laura area in 1979 because we couldn't grow enough food to feed ourselves or our families. I grow maize, sorghum, and millet. The yields are much better. The rains start earlier here and they last longer.
At the local market in the town of Sola, maize, yams, granules, millet, and sorghum are all in good supply. For now, the area has enough spare productive land to absorb the continuing flow of migrants, but longer term, pressure on the land is likely to rise. But even here, farmers are not safe from the same problems that drove them from their homelands.
We know that the heat is coming. The same heat that moved us from the Upper West region is now catching up with us here as well.
Climate change is not one person or one country or one individual's making. It is all our making. We all have to put our hands on deck and try to, if not reverse the situation, try to manage it. Those people at the Upper West They have to do serious soil and water management. Since that is their home region, that's their origin, that is their land, we need to assist them to be able to manage it so that they could stay there. There's no place like home. No matter where you are, your home, where you have been born, your ancestral home, there's no other place like that place.
I now invite Mrs. Mavis Afutu for the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, Accra, to introduce our chairman for today. Mavis, you are welcome. And then kindly come and do the introduction.
Thank you. The Director of RCC, who is representing the Regional Minister, representative of the Metropolitan Chief Executive, KMA, chiefs, Queen Mothers, directors of Agric and CSIR institutes, lecturers from our universities, farmers, NGOs, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen. I have the singular honor to introduce the chairperson for this all-important occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, he joined the Forest Research Institute in 1990 as an assistant research officer. Between 1992 to 1997, he pursued his master's and PhD at the Nagoya University of Japan, where he studied agri-science and majored in forestry. He has a number of publications to his credit, and these are in relation to climate change with regards to forestry. He's also on a number of committees, one of which is the RED, that is Reduced Emission from Deforestation and Forest Degradation. But one thing that is of national interest is that he contributed immensely towards the estimation of carbon stock of the forest in Ghana by developing allometric equations. He is currently collaborating with a number of institutions for research on climate-related issues. And some of these are the University of Oxford, Open University of UK, University of British Columbia of Canada, among others. You would agree with me with his profile that he has a vast experience on climate-related issues to handle this program to a successful end. He is currently a deputy director with the Forest Research Institute and in the person of Dr. Stephen Edu. Shall we welcome him? Thank you. Doctor, your audience.
As we are in this room, our regional minister is Honorable Osei Poku, because he is representing the regional minister, and the mayor is my lady, and Nananom, directors of CSR, directors of Agric, lecturers, Nananom Hima, and Nana, there's other protocols reserved. We thank you so much for honoring me, asking me to chair this particular function, very, very, very important function. Climate change is a threat to global development. It's really a threat. It's even estimated that for the past few years, the temperature of the country has somewhat increased by about 1%, 1 degree. And it's been predicted that by 2050, in the forest zone of the country, rainfall is going to be reduced by about 20%. That's a prediction by 2050. So he said it's a Herculean task that he has to find means of overcoming these. You know the menace of climate change. Rainfall, when you are not expecting major rainfall, drought, and other things. Farmers haven't cropped their land, maybe expecting a bumper harvest. The rain will come in suddenly, there will be flood, everything will be wiped away, damage they lose. The time we've been starting the preparation of the land for other things are hampered by the changes in climate issues. So there's a need, therefore, for means of adapting to this particular situation. As you know, agriculture plays a very important role in the socio-economic development of this nation. We have the middle section, getting the transition being called the food basket of the nation. So this happiness, if you are not able to find means of adapting to the situation, then we find ourselves in a very difficult situation. We have various adaptation programs being carried out in the country. One is the reduced emission for deforestation, for degradation. We also have the enhancement and other things just to mitigate it. We also have to adapt various adaptation measures to overcome them. But unfortunately, there are a lot of disjointed, isolated, no uncoordinated activities with regard to climate change in the country. The information is scattered. There's a need to bring all these specialists together for information sharing, to share what those various disjointed groups are able to find out. Not unfortunately, even the president have also launched the National Climate Change Policy. So we are here today. We have farmers, we have the policy makers, we have the decision makers, we have the scientists, both from university and research organizing, assembled here. They are made here to share information, to share knowledge, and take it out to the people for the general good of the nation. So I'm very happy that we are assembling here. I hope and I believe by the end of the day, each and every one of us will carry something useful to various places for the general good of the nation. Thank you very much. I accept the responsibility of being the chairman of this function. How they are going to cooperate with me for the function to come to a successful end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this juncture, we shall call Madam Yvonne Nabu to welcome us. Madam.
Thank you, Mr. MC. Mr. Chairman, before I carry on, I would want to seek permission for my Metropolitan Chief Executive, Honorable Kojo Bonsu, for being absent for this program. He was scheduled to come for this program, but then just at the same time, he was called to some official duties at Menchia. He had to rush there, and I had to quickly step in for him and come and do his address for him. So with your permission, may I carry on his behalf? Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Chairman, the representative of the Honorable Regional Minister, Nananom, Nanahimanom, faculty, staff, and academia of the CSIR and KNUST, Chairman, Ghana CCAFS Platform, participants, the media, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to deliver the welcome address for the Climate Smart Agriculture and Technology Profiling Workshop organized by the Animal Research Institute of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research of Ghana. Climate change poses a major challenge to development globally. It is especially more serious for countries like Ghana, whose economies are largely dependent on agriculture. It therefore comes as no surprise that Ghana has taken several bold initiatives towards the development of comprehensive strategies for adaptation to climate change. Government launched a national climate change policy with the aim of achieving a sustainable socioeconomic growth. To achieve this goal, a platform for the sharing of knowledge, information, and utilization at all levels was highly necessary. This led to the creation of the Ghana Climate Change, Agriculture, and Food Security Platform, which seeks to, among others, build network partnerships and alliances both locally and internationally, as well as build capacities to enhance change and adaptation to climate change at all levels. Today's workshop, I am reliably informed, is part of the activities of this platform. This workshop is aimed at bringing policymakers, implementers, and all other stakeholders who matter in the equation together for information sharing on best practices to enable communities become resilient to the impact of climate change and improve livelihoods. It is therefore a grand honor and privilege for me to officially welcome you all to this workshop. It is our hope that you would make the maximum use of the time here. I urge you to freely contribute and air your views on the issues at stake. This would enable us all reach the intended goals of this important workshop. Mr. Chairman, Nananom, Nanahimanum, ladies and gentlemen, may I at this point wish you all a fruitful session. Thank you and Akwaba.
Thank you very much, Madam Yvonne. Shall we invite Dr. Kabo, who is the chairman of the Ghana Climate Change, Agriculture, and Food Security Platform, to give us his remarks. Dr. Kabo.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, the Honorable Regional Minister, represented here ably by the Coordinating Director, respectable chiefs, Nananum, Nanahimanum, I just learned this one. The Honorable Municipal Chief Executive represented here in the metropolis, directors of the ministries, my colleague, former directors, the representative of FAO present with us, scientists, farmers, the media, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. Permit me, on behalf of the management of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research of Ghana and the Ghana Climate Change, Agriculture, and Food Security Platform, to express our delight in having you here today to deliberate on climate change matters in this part of the country. As chairman of the platform, I humbly add my voice to the welcome message already delivered to you by the representative. Mr. Chairman, the Honorable Regional Minister, represented here ably by the Coordinating Director, respectable chiefs, Nananum, Nanahimanum, I just learned this one. The Honorable Municipal Chief Executive represented here in the metropolis, directors of the ministries, my colleague, former directors, the representative of FAO present with us, scientists, farmers, the media, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. Permit me, on behalf of the management of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research of Ghana and the Ghana Climate Change, Agriculture, and Food Security Platform, to express our delight in having you here today to deliberate on climate change matters in this part of the country. As chairman of the platform, I humbly add my voice to the welcome message already delivered to you by the representative of the Honorable Mayor of Kumasi. My context-based remarks seek to share with you information about the Ghana Climate Change, Agriculture, and Food Security Platform. And I should add that similar platforms exist in Mali and Senegal under the CCAFS West Africa program. The platform is a national multi-stakeholder group of farmer-based organizations, NGOs, religious bodies, researchers, academia, and policymakers with a common goal to enhance climate change adaptation in the agricultural sector in rural communities in Ghana through exchange of information and influencing policy. Support for the platform comes from the Climate Change, Agriculture, and Food Security Program of West Africa under the CGI system. The mobilization of stakeholders started in the year 2012, and the platform was officially and jointly launched on 30th July 2013 by the sector ministers of the Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology, and Information, the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, the Ministry of Trade and Industry. And they did charge this platform to work for the country and stand tall. The platform secretariat is being hosted by the CSIR Animal Research Institute and co-chaired by the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. Mr. Chairman, a representative core team of 10 members drawn from CSIR, the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, EPA, the NGO community, farmer-based organizations, and the university community facilitate the activities of the platform. Guided by a framework for networking and partnerships to share information on technologies, practices, research results, policies, and integration for decision-making, the platform seeks to provide a functional linkage between community-level practitioners, research and policy decision-makers, and vice versa at all levels. So far, 2 national and 1 regional platform meetings for sharing and learning on policy, research, and community-level climate-smart agricultural practices have been held for a total of over 200 participants. This one will be counted as the 2nd regional workshop with over 70 participants expected. a high-level sensitization workshop on climate-smart agriculture was also organized for parliamentarians, chief directors, and directors of relevant agencies in Accra in the first quarter of 2014. This brief chronicle of events explains why we are extremely happy to have your category of multi-stakeholder group in Kumasi, the Ashanti regional capital, to deliberate on the important issue of climate change and climate-smart agriculture in the relatively humid forest agroecology. Mr. Chairman, there is a growing global alliance for climate-smart agriculture, which was launched at the UN Climate Summit in New York this year. The African Alliance for Climate-Smart Agriculture is also gathering the needed momentum and being championed by the AU NEPAD. I believe this activity by the Ghana platform today will generate two important effects: sensitization for awareness creation and a stock-taking of climate-smart technologies and practices in the zone. I therefore hope the lessons learned here will feed into the WA regional workshop and result in outcomes beneficial to our common institutional and innovative arrangements, as well as supportive of improving the adaptive capacities and resilience of agriculture in our country. Let me further inform you that in furtherance of getting climate change platform activities down at the grassroots level, the National Climate Change Agriculture and Food Security Platform has facilitated the establishment of 3 district-level platforms in Laura, Jirapa, and Nandom, all in the Upper West region this year, under a flagship 4 project dubbed Strengthening Science Policy Exchange Platforms to mainstream climate-smart agriculture into national and subnational agriculture and food security policy plans at all levels. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, kindly accept warm greetings from the Climate Change, Agriculture and Food Security Program West Africa Coordinator, Dr. Robert Zukmore, who is based in Bamako, Mali. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you well.
Thank you, Dr. Kabo, for your remarks. Mr. Chairman, from the program, I think I need to seek your permission to invite Mr. Benjamin Ejay, who works with Food and Agriculture Organization in Accra, to make a PowerPoint presentation. So with your permission, shall we move down and have his presentation?
I will attempt to discuss why climate-smart agriculture and what is new with climate-smart agriculture. Are there opportunities in its applications that we could adopt? And I will conclude. Climate-smart agriculture contributes to the achievement of sustainable development. It integrates 3 dimensions of sustainable development: as economic dimension of our development, social dimensions, then the environmental sustainability of any given society, by jointly addressing food security and climate challenges. It is composed of 3 main pillars: sustainably increasing agricultural productivity and incomes, adapting and building resilience to climate change, reducing or removing greenhouse gases emissions where possible. Climate smart agriculture is an approach to developing the technical, policy, and investment conditions to achieve sustainable agricultural development for food security and climate change. In this diagram, you can see it very well. We try as much as possible to intensify food production by increasing productivity and increasing income. We strengthen our resilience towards climate change and the variability of climate change effects, and reduce agriculture's contribution to climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emissions and carbon storage, and making sure that agriculture contributes to sinking carbon in our soils. And also, it looks at development goals, our own development policies like the Ghana GSGDA, and ensures that all this is holistically looked at to ensure that food production is at that high pedestal, while ensuring that we do not. So it ensures that we are able to produce food while maintaining the integrity of our natural environment and ensuring that climate change effects are minimized to the barest minimum. Yeah. So it seeks to enhance food security, mitigate climate change, preserve natural resource base and vital ecosystems, and transitioning from agricultural production alone and looking at the whole system from input to the table to the value chain and involving all sectors in agricultural production, making sure that everybody contributes its quota to reducing climate change and ensuring that productivity of agriculture is reached. So we want more productivity. Yeah. We use our inputs more efficiently. It contributes to less variability and more stability in outputs, more resilient to risks, shocks, and long-term climate variability. It addresses the complex, interrelated challenges of food security, development, and climate change, and identifies integrated options that create synergies and reduces trade-offs. It recognizes that these options will be shaped by specific country context and capacities, as well as socio-economic and environmental situations. It assesses the interactions between sectors and needs of different stakeholders, identifies barriers to adoption, especially for farmers, and provides appropriate solutions in terms of policies, strategies, actions, and incentives. It seeks to create an enabling environment through a better alignment of policies, investments, and institutions. Strives to achieve multiple objectives with the understanding that priorities need to be set and collective decisions made on different benefits and trade-offs. It prioritizes the strengthening of livelihoods, especially those of smallholders, by improving access to services, knowledge resources, financial products, and markets. It addresses adaptation and builds resilience to shocks, especially those related to climate change. It considers climate change mitigation as a potential secondary core benefit, especially in low-income agriculture-based populations. it seeks to identify opportunities to assess climate-related financing and integrate it with traditional sources of agricultural investment finance. So why are we singing the song of climate-smart agriculture now? There is the need to meet our demand for food production because our population is increasing, and by, as the doctor spoke the other time, our population is increasing. We will need to meet our demand for food. By 2050, we will reach 9 billion, and we will have to boost our agricultural production by about 60%. Agriculture should undergo a significant transformation to feed a growing global population. With all this in view, climate change is there, staring us in the face with its associated challenges. And reaching this goal, we need to use an holistic approach such that our productivity does not contribute to the greenhouse gas emissions and also helps in mitigating the effects of climate change. So the main effects of climate change on agricultural production: it decreases production in certain areas, it changes in geography of productions, agroecological zones. Some agroecological zones might not be able to produce what they were producing before. So there is that need to have adaptation and have shocks towards this. And CSA hopes to address this. Increased variability of production, because there will be times whereby the way we produce has to change, and we have to vary it in a way that we will have to find a way of feeding our population, our increasing population. And the challenge for agriculture can be seen in 3 ways. I mean, we have to produce more food in quantity, quality, and diversity everywhere for everyone. At the same time, we have to adapt to climate change and increase resilience. We have to contribute to mitigate climate change while adapting to it. So you will see on these 3 diagrams, this is already ongoing. We have productivity, trying to increase productivity, trying to be more resilient and mitigate the effects of climate change. On the extreme right, you see productivity, the same thing, but you see the circles, some are bigger, some are smaller. So what climate change, climate-smart agriculture is trying to do is to make sure that there is synergy between all these 3, productivity, resilience, and mitigation, that they all work in synchronity to achieve a common goal. This next slide. So here we say mitigation, adaptation, productivity and income increase have to work together. We have to have a synergy. And this synergy between security and adaptation and climate change mitigation, main objective is to ensure that enhanced food security and development goals are achieved. And all agricultural sectors, including the locals, are all part of this initiative, are all part of the climate-smart agriculture. So, in essence, the building of synergy between these 3 areas can be termed as that climate-smart agriculture. So, what is new with climate-smart agriculture? Is it new? Is it something new that we are doing? I say no. It's not a new agricultural system, nor is it a new set of practices. Rather, it aims to achieve food security and contribute to preserve natural resources, and as such, has very close links to the concept of sustainable intensification. So what I'm saying here is, most of the components of climate-smart agriculture are already in place, and we might be doing some at the local level. It is just a new approach, a way to guide the needed changes of agricultural systems, given the necessity to jointly address food security and climate change. So the key word here is jointly address food security and climate change. CSA shares all the objectives and guiding principles of the green economy, sustainable development approaches, conservation agriculture, and the likes. You can see from this graph, from the micro level to the macro level, we've been going through conservation agriculture already. We try to produce while not degrading our environment. We try to do organic farming. We have sustainable land management, agroecology, and we now have climate smart agriculture. But what climate smart agriculture is doing is trying to put all these together, integrating them together, and making sure that we talk to each other and make it a kind of multi-function planning and linking it to policy. It is made area-based management, localized, and making sure that farming techniques of the local people are incorporated and they bring in their homegrown solutions over the entire value chain. So, like you can see this glass bowl here, takes green economy, sustainable development, sustainable intensification, that is making sure we produce more while using maybe the same land, but productivity is increased using improved seeds, using fertilizer that will not necessarily degrade the soils. Like, as you see here, it contributes to the achievement of sustainable development goals, economic, social, and environment. It uses the green economy and ensures the sustainable development goals. So there are about 5 of these, but let me quickly look. It's looking at the whole food system. And when we look at the whole food system, it's not just from the production of crops. The person who is transporting is part of the process. The person who will be processing is part. The person who will be selling it is part. We who will be consuming it, we are all part of the food system, and we are all going to play a role in ensuring that climate smart agriculture objectives and principles are incorporated to ensure that all the effects of climate change can be minimized. Yeah. So there are presenters who will be making presentations on this, so I will not dwell much on this. But from livestock, you can see opportunities where we could address CSA too by ensuring high-quality diets, improve pasture management, use of diverse agro byproducts for feed, changing patterns of pastoralism and use of water points, herd management, livestock diversification. There are a lot more examples. Fishes and aquaculture also has its own. Then here, looking at it, we have to find a way of creating efficient use of byproducts, greater attention to food safety, less energy intensity in fertilizer production, changing diets. We improve resilience of infrastructure for storage and transport. We reduce post-harvest losses and consumer wastage. So in all this, we look at the whole food system continuum. So I will conclude by saying climate smart agriculture is not a new agricultural system, nor a new set of practices. It is a new approach, a way to guide the needed changes of agricultural systems, given the necessity to jointly address food security and climate change. CSA brings together practices, policies, and institutions that are not necessarily new, but are used in the context of climatic changes. It addresses multiple challenges faced by agriculture and food systems simultaneously and holistically, which helps avoid counterproductive policies, legislation, or financing. On this note, I would say thank you, and probably as you go, if there are questions, I will gladly like to address it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Clap for him. Because this is a new concept, climate smart agriculture. We have water smart, we have smartphones, and now we have climate smart agriculture. Thank you very much, Mr. Ajay, for your delivery. Mr. Chairman, Madam Yvonne, representing the Mayor, Nananom, Nanahima, directors, and ladies and gentlemen, it is time we invite Mr. K. Osei Poku to give us a keynote address of the regional minister. Shall we welcome him?
Thank you. When the chairman was being introduced, and it was mentioned that our chairman for this program is an expert in allometric equations, I say, and what the first presenter has done is ample evidence that we are in for a long haul. High quality diets, micro levels, conservation, agric, and agric ecology, and all those things tells you that we are in for a long haul. And I'm very grateful to the chairman for giving me this opportunity to represent the Honorable Regional Minister, who is out of the country. When we had an invitation to join you for this program, we looked at the resource persons and we realized that each person had been given 20 minutes to do the presentation. And when you are moving into people who are laboratory-oriented, you don't talk much. So the Honorable Minister decided then to limit himself to 10 minutes of presentation before the lab people take the center stage. And therefore, I am just going to give a presentation. No, mine will not be a presentation. It's just going to be, I'm going to read exactly what the regional minister would have read without adding a full stop or a comma. And I can assure you that when I do the 10 minutes, wherever I have reached, I will stop. Thank you very much. So, Mr. Chairman, Dr. Stephen Edu Bredu, who is the Deputy Director for Forest Research, the rep of the Mayor of the Kumasi Metropolitan Assembly, directors of various institutions of state, distinguished participants, resource persons, Nananom, ladies and gentlemen. I am much grateful for the opportunity to join you today at this important workshop, which is aimed at sensitizing stakeholders on the vulnerability of agriculture and food system to climate change and the need for action. Mr. Chairman, agriculture has been and continues to serve as a major driver of economic growth in most African countries. Although the level of agric production is dependent on capital input and human resources, climate is also an overriding factor. Climate determines the type of crops that can be grown in certain geographical areas. That is why in northern part of this country, for instance, certain crops like beans, millet, Guinea corn, groundnut, and so on survive better than in the southern sector. It is therefore important for us as a country to take several steps towards the development of strategies to help improve on agricultural activities across the country through careful study and analysis of our climate. Mr. Chairman, agriculture in developing countries must undergo significant transformation in order to meet the related challenges of achieving food security and responding to climate change. Projections have been made which indicates that agricultural production must increase to at least 70% to meet demands of population growth if we take 2050 as our target year. Other estimates also indicate that climate change is likely to reduce agricultural productivity and GDP of most African countries in the same year. Developing climate-smart agriculture is therefore very essential to achieving future food security and achieving climate change goals. The effect of climate change on agricultural systems creates a compelling need to ensure comprehensive integration of the national agricultural planning investment and programs. An approach to develop the technical policy under climate change therefore becomes imperative. Agri-technologies are also very essential for the improvement of the sector. Technologies need to be accessible and affordable for farmers. I recently heard of a new soil technology that the Soil Research Institute has introduced to farmers, which is a cassava cowpea strip intercropping system, which seeks to improve soil health for sustainable crop productivity. Here I decided to talk like a scientist. I therefore want to commend the Ghana Climate Change and Food Security, the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, and all other stakeholders for this workshop. Nana Chairman, let me indicate that the government of Ghana is very much committed towards making the agri sector very effective to meet the food needs of the people. To this end, every effort is being made by government also to ensure that critical programs and workshops such as this are organized to help farmers and other policymakers in the sector to improve upon its activities. And that is why the Ministry of Food and Agriculture has facilitated the preparation of the Food and Security Sector Development Policy. FASDEP 11. This policy states the vision and objectives of government in relation to the development of the agricultural sector. Ghanaian farmers urgently need support from all of us gathered here to enable them access improved seeds and fertilizers for them to rapidly raise their crop yields and, for that matter, income. It is my hope, Nana Chairman, and desire that after this workshop, we will be able, as farmers and policymakers, develop better approach into reducing the effect of climate change on agriculture and find better and applicable technologies that will help improve yield and productivity. And on this note, I welcome you all to the workshop, wishing you a fruitful deliberation and also wishing you a very successful Farmers' Day. Thank you very much, and I am done. I did it under 7 minutes. Oh. Give me another hand. 7 minutes. Thank you very much.
Smart agriculture. I'm very happy today because all the time when you're talking of climate change, we don't see more of livestock. It's always crop and soil. So I think it's a right opportunity for us to also tell you more about what is happening with livestock in relation to climate change. I would say that climate-smart agriculture in relation to livestock, it's how we can raise livestock without polluting the environment, of environmentally friendly way of raising livestock with the mind of productivity. That is, we maintain productivity while we're reducing the emissions that affect our environment. But, I would want to first give an overview of what actually happens in the atmosphere and what greenhouse effect is all about. And in the course of the presentation, I also talk about the some of the statistics that we have in agriculture effect on climate change, and also the livestock role in greenhouse gas emission, where I will dwell on the enteric fermentation and also the manure from livestock production. And I'll give some examples of how we can reduce the greenhouse gases as well as the essence of measurement of these gases, and then some adaptation practices. But before that, I want to get down having the atmosphere and the air surface, and what actually happens when solar radiation hits the air surface. So we have the gases that the atmosphere has. We have nitrogen, about 78%. We have oxygen, 21% in other gases. These gases, the methane, carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, which is missing here, are all greenhouse gases. So what happens is that the greenhouse gases kind of serve as a blanket, which actually keep the atmosphere very warm. Without this effect, we cannot survive in the atmosphere, or even on Earth, because these gases retain the heat, which is very radiated from the air surface to keep it warm. Without that, we're going to have temperature in the -33, which we cannot survive. So greenhouse gases are very important. So what happens in our system here? When there's solar radiation, the shortwave radiation hits the Earth's surface, and the Earth re-radiates the solar radiation back to the atmosphere. Now, the greenhouse gas also absorbs some of these gases, as I said, to keep the Earth atmosphere warm. But when we have some anthropogenic factors, which actually, that is human-related greenhouse gas emission, which actually cause an increase in these greenhouse gases, we have the greenhouse gas, retaining a lot of heat, which causes a rise in temperatures and then lead to this global warming. So that is what is actually happening. And when there's rise in temperature, you see that some of the ice melts, and then you have flooding and what have you. So we know that agriculture contributes about 18% to these greenhouse gas emissions. And livestock in sub-Saharan Africa, according to ILRI 2009, contributes 3% of these greenhouse gases emitted. So it means that livestock production, particularly ruminant production, causes a lot of emissions. Now, methane, which has a global warming potential of about 25 times of that of carbon dioxide, contributes to 28% of human-generated greenhouse gases, human-generated methane. And then we have nitrous oxide, which has a global warming potential of about 296 times that of carbon dioxide, being 67% of nitrous oxide emitted as a result of human activities. Now, what is it about livestock that we want to know in its relation to greenhouse gases? We know that soils, emits greenhouse gases. We know that of crops. But in livestock, because of, I would say, lack of awareness, most of us don't know the role of livestock contribution to greenhouse gases. What actually happens is that we have manure, which is a source of greenhouse gas emission, and also enteric fermentation, which is also a source of greenhouse gas emission. Now, let me take the enteric fermentation. When I say enteric fermentation, what I mean is that in the ruminant production system, those who are familiar with ruminants, we have what they call the rumen. That is where fermentation actually takes place. In human beings, we have digestion, because we have one stomach. Now, in the rumen, when the animal eats grasses, which is common in our system here, like napier grass or even maize clover, the materials are broken down by the microbes. So we have the end products being short-chain fatty acids, the microbial biomass, and also gas being produced. Now, these short-chain fatty acids actually supply energy to the animal. So we have something like when you feed the livestock or ruminants, you don't feed the host animal, but you feed the microbes. So the microbes, which will produce these short-chain fatty acids, would supply energy to the animal. And the microbes will then, the microbial biomass will then also supply protein to the animal. Unless, of course, you protect the protein where the protein will escape fermentation in the rumen and becomes available straight to the host animal. Then we have the gases. In the course of fermentation, we have gas produced, as I've shown you in the equation above. And the gases are mainly hydrogen and carbon dioxide. So methane itself, which is a greenhouse gas, is not actually produced in the course of fermentation, but it undergoes some fermentative pathway which leads to the production of methane. Sorry, I have the box up there, which you cannot see. I mean feed material or hay, which I just mentioned. So when the hay is ingested, we have microbes in the rumen. We have cellulotic protozoa and cellulotic bacteria, which actually ferment the fiber or cellulose in the rumen. So when the animal ingests or eats, this protozoa or the cellulotic bacteria converts the feed ingested into acetate and butyrate. Then this cellulotic protozoa and also the bacteria will also produce hydrogen gas in the course of fermentation. Now, these hydrogen gas are then used by methanogens. These are microbes in the rumen which actually use hydrogen gas in their metabolic pathway to produce methane. Now, we have methane being produced, which will then be eructated, and then it goes out into the environment, being a greenhouse gas. So I've given a simple equation here where carbon dioxide is reduced to methane with the production of water. So this is the methane that we're talking about in the course of fermentation, which is a greenhouse gas. Then with manure, which is also produced as a result of livestock production, undergoes some changes, which leads to the emission of nitrous oxide to the atmosphere, which is also a potent greenhouse gas, which I said that it's about 296 global warming potential of carbon dioxide. So the manure will decompose. So when the animal defecates during grazing, it decomposes to ammonia. And some of the ammonia in the soil might volatilize to ammonium, which will volatilize to ammonia. And then in the process of nitrification, that's in the presence of oxygen, you have nitrate. So in areas where you have excess water, where we know that water can get rid of oxygen, that is when you have manure being channeled into water, we have slurry, you have the nitrification process, where the microorganisms will convert the nitrate to nitrous oxide and then some nitrogen. So in all these, we have to think of having some mitigation strategies, how we can reduce the emission, because we know the effect of climate and we know what will happen without any strategy to reduce it. Animal in terms of converting feed materials to body weight than producing methane. And in this case, if we have that, we can reduce the livestock numbers, because of greenhouse gas emission from livestock, numbers are very important. Those who have the tier approach, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, with the tier 1 livestock number. So if we can reduce the number, then it means that the emissions can be reduced. So if you have livestock numbers reduced and also you meet the demand, then I think that we are also reducing emission. We have what we call the plant secondary compounds in our system here. We have the shrubs that actually reduce methane production during. And what this happens is that the tannins and saponins, which are part of plant secondary compounds, the tannins itself with the cellulose. Okay, so the microbes break the cellulose down in the rumen, which will lead to the production of gas, which will then be used by carbon dioxide in the course of metabolic pathway to produce methane. And also do with, they also bind with the protozoa cell. Okay, so they reduce of the protozoa in the conversion of cellulose to. So when that happens, you have little emissions of methane during fermentation in the rumen. We can also talk about manipulation. The dye manipulation, what can you do to reduce the emission of methane or the production of methane in the rumen? The diet quality is we have the concentrate type, the type of and the stage of maturity. So if you feed concentrate to ruminants, the short-chain volatile fatty acids, which create the acetate and then the propionate, because you fed concentrate, the production of propionate to be high, and that of acetate and butyrate, because it's through the production of acetate and butyrate which leads to the emission of methane. Type of forage and also stage of maturity. With time, we know that when you have napier grass or any other grass, when it stays longer on the field, because of the effect, the animals cannot actually handle it well. So when at the time when it's not fully lignified, then in this you will reduce the emission, because with high lignin and cellulose content will lead to production of methane. Then we have like nitrate, which actually captures the hydrogen, which will be used by the methanogens to produce, and prebiotics, the same reason as above. We have biotechnological approaches in the reduction of methane. Feed additives, biological control, vaccination, chemical injection. All these seek to rechannel hydrogen gas usage in the system. The hydrogen gas will not be used by the methanogens to produce C. I want to talk about the mitigation in our system here. I was once in New Zealand where they import palm kernel in a powder form to supplement their animal, and the aim was to reduce emission. Because what happens is palm kernel cake has some lipids, and the lipids are unsaturated. So we know from basic biochemistry that it binds with hydrogen gas compound. So the hydrogen gas, which will be used by the methane, are used by the lipids so that you don't have methane. We have the brass one, which I've talked about because of it has saponins in there. And then we can also improve our feed by simply doing urea treatment. One scientist called Preston did that, reduce methane emission by 20% when feed was supplemented or improved urea application. So with this precision feeding, that would be more of nitrous oxide emission. And what is happening? Because when you have a lot of nitrogen in the diet, the animals kill all of them. So most of them will be lost in the feces, which will be to ammonium, and then later you get nitrous oxide. So what is happening is, because we want to reduce the level in the diet, we have to do precision feeding. What is the nitrogen by that particular animal, so that when you feed, you wouldn't give them excess this nitrogen gas. It's very important to talk of the strategies of measurement if you are dealing with mitigation, because if you don't know how much the methane is produced, how can you reduce it? So we have some techniques that we use in mitigation of methane. We have the respiratory chamber, where we have an open circuit system, so that every gas that rotate is captured, and then the levels of carbon dioxide or hydrogen is recorded. Now we have a green feed technique, which is a technique introduced by some scientists in the US, where the animal will go sit like this one, and as it eats from the bin, this one, gas is being recorded. It has got I've forgotten which actually captures the gas from the animal. And then one which is appropriate with our system here, that is the sulfur hydroxide technique. So that one, because in our system, cannot normally house our animals. They are always on the field grazing. So if you want to make the methane produce, how do you do that? So with that this SFC's technique, the supervisor technique, you can put a canister around the neck of the cattle animal in question, and then you have a valve connected to the halter, which is around the mouth, the nostril. So as the animal belches, it takes the gases into the canister, which will then be collected and monitored, or we call the methane produced. So these are the techniques that we use in the measurement, so that you know how much methane is produced if an animal is put on this diet or that particular diet. You know which diet produce less methane, and then you supplement animals with a diet. It's important also about the impact. Otherwise, we wouldn't know the essence of irrigation studies. Because if you know that climate change can cause drought, where you have limited livestock drinking water sources, and also with forage or pasture yield, you wouldn't know importance to kind of mitigate. You have rising temperature, which affect the quality of straw, where you have a lot of lignin being produced. And when you have a lot of rainfall, as in what we recorded in 2007 in Kenya, and even 2010 in South Africa, this Rift Valley fever virus. Okay, so because of the fluctuation in, you have the vector in the system actually lead to disease outbreak. And then this tolerance trait in West Africa, because of changes in rainfall pattern, would also be affected. And then we have temperature and humidity, which also has some effect or has a role to play in helminth infection. So in case we are confronted with these changes or with this climate change, what can we do to farmers? What education to livestock farmers to adapt in times of changes in climate? We have breeding strategies where we can breed our animals, and it's also select animals which can withstand heat. You know that in case of climate change, there will be rise in temperature. So if we have